My son was accidentally served a kid's meal at my sister's wedding. So I quickly had it corrected to an adult meal. But my sister exploded with anger because it cost her more money with the catering. And as punishment, made everyone skip my son's birthday party because, in her words, she's the bride and makes the rules. I wish I could say I was surprised. But in truth, part of me always knew Melissa hated sharing the spotlight with anyone, especially Ethan. It wasn't about the money. It never was. $77 didn't break her wedding budget. What broke her was the idea that for even a moment someone might look away from her and notice my son. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was how much Ethan had been looking forward to that day. He never had a real birthday with our extended family. We live across the country from most of them, and with my job and tight finances, travel was rarely an option. But this year felt different. He was turning 18. Everyone would already be in town. It was his one chance to feel like he mattered, and Melissa took that from him. Because I asked for a plate of beef instead of 4 chicken nuggets. Because she needed one more excuse to remind everyone. This weekend wasn't about anyone else. Just her. At the wedding, she said nothing. Not a look. Not a comment. She posed for pictures like everything was perfect. Like she hadn't just humiliated my son in front of his cousins and our entire family. But the next morning at brunch, her silence said everything. She didn't sit near me. Didn't ask how I slept. Didn't even look at Ethan. Just cold smiles and polite nods. Like I was an acquaintance, not her sister. And when brunch was ending, I approached her. Gently. Trying to keep the peace. I asked, "Are you still coming to Ethan's birthday this afternoon?" That's when she pulled it out. A folded piece of paper from her clutch. She didn't even look up when she said it. "Maybe I'll come, once you pay this." I unfolded the page. It was an invoice, $77.50, a breakdown of unplanned catering costs with the caterer's logo and payment details. I blinked. "What is this?" I asked, still thinking it had to be a joke. She finally looked at me, stone cold, and said, "That extra adult meal for Ethan? You changed the order last minute. I had to cover it. It's only fair you pay me back." I stood there, speechless. I had RSVP'd for 2 beef dinners 6 months ago. She knew that. I had proof. And yet, she was acting like I'd sabotaged her wedding. I could feel the room shift. A few heads turned. Whispers started. Melissa tucked the invoice back into her clutch, stood up gracefully, and said with a smile, "Sorry, but a bride shouldn't have to deal with other people's drama on her weekend." And just like that, she walked away, taking the spotlight and half our family with her. That afternoon, Ethan and I arrived at the birthday venue early. I had booked a small outdoor space. Nothing fancy, but filled with everything he loved. His favorite chocolate cake, a playlist we made together, and a banner that read, "18 looks good on you." We waited and waited. Each time the door opened, Ethan looked up with hope. And each time, his face dropped just a little more. No cousins, no uncles, no aunts, not even our mom. I checked my phone. No one called. No one texted. Not even to say they weren't coming. Eventually, I stepped outside and called my mother. She picked up on the 3rd ring. "Are you still coming?" I asked, trying to sound calm. Her voice was flat, cold. "Your sister's upset, Carla. You embarrassed her at her wedding. Maybe next year." I stood there, stunned. It wasn't just that she wasn't coming. It was the way she said it. Like Ethan's birthday wasn't even worth showing up for. Like his feelings were less important than Melissa's fake invoice. I walked back inside. Ethan was sitting alone at the table, staring at the cake. 18 candles, still unlit. I sat beside him, put a hand on his shoulder. He didn't say a word. He didn't cry. He just looked at me and whispered, "I guess I know where I stand now." And in that moment, something in me broke. Not just because they skipped his birthday, but because they made him feel like he didn't matter. And I let it happen. That night, I couldn't sleep. Ethan had gone to bed early. No candles, no cake, just silence. And the kind of hurt that doesn't need words. I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the folded invoice Melissa gave me. It was still in my purse. $77.50 for an unauthorized meal. At first glance, it looked official. But as I turned it over in my hands, something caught my eye. The ink on the page was smudged. Not from water, but from bleeding. A red tint faintly spreading from the edges of the black letters. It was subtle, but I'd seen it before. Years ago, my mom had an old inkjet printer that always left red smudges, even when printing in black and white. And then it hit me. This wasn't printed at the wedding. It wasn't whipped up in frustration the morning after. It was printed before the wedding. I flipped the paper over and held it to the light. There it was. The same tiny shadow line her printer left on every document. My stomach dropped. This was planned. Melissa never intended to let Ethan have his moment. She'd been smiling in my face while preparing to humiliate us behind it. The next day, I called my mother again. This time, I didn't ask if she was coming. I just asked one question. "Did you print that invoice for Melissa?" There was a long pause on the line. Then she said with absolutely no hesitation, "It was her wedding, Carla. All the attention should have been on her anyway." I felt like someone had slapped me. Her voice was calm, dismissive. Like Ethan's birthday was an inconvenience. Like I should have known better than to expect a bride to share anything. Not even a day after. "But Mom," I said quietly. Her wedding was on Saturday. Ethan's party was Sunday. She doesn't own the weekend. Another pause. Then she said the words that ended whatever hope I had left. "You always try to make everything about you. Maybe it's time you stopped." After that phone call, something inside me shifted. I sat at the edge of Ethan's bed, watching him sleep. His jawline sharper now, his shoulders broader, but curled on his side like he was still that little boy who once asked me if people forgot birthdays on purpose. I had spent years trying to fix things with my mother. Therapy, letters, long phone calls filled with apology after apology for things I didn't even do. And for a while, I thought it worked. But this was never about a meal, or a birthday, or even a wedding. It was about control, about power, about reminding me and my son that we were still the outsiders in our own family. I walked back into the kitchen and took out my phone. One by one, I typed a message and sent it to every member of the family who had ignored Ethan's birthday. If you think a child's milestone can be erased over a dinner plate, then maybe you were never meant to be in his life. And after everything I've done to keep this family together, I'm done apologizing for existing. I didn't expect a response, and I didn't get one. But you know what I did get? Peace. The next morning, Ethan and I drove to the beach, just us. No plan, no pressure. He brought his camera, I brought snacks. We stayed until the sun dipped into the water, laughing about nothing. And when we got home that night, there was half a birthday cake still in the fridge. We lit all 18 candles, just the two of us. He made a wish, blew them out, and smiled. It's been a year since that weekend. Since the wedding. Since the brunch. Since the fake invoice that cost me far more than $77. We haven't spoken to Melissa since. She sent a message months later. Something passive, shallow, dressed up as concern. I didn't reply. My mother called twice. Once for the holidays. Once when she found out Ethan got into his dream college. Both times I let it ring. And both times I felt something unexpected. Relief. Because here's what I've learned. Sometimes family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when no one else does. It's who celebrates your child, not when it's convenient, but when it matters most. I used to think keeping the peace meant keeping quiet. That being the bigger person meant swallowing pain and calling it grace. But now I know. Protecting your child is never the wrong thing. And setting boundaries doesn't make you cruel. It makes you brave. This year, for Ethan's 19th birthday, we didn't wait for anyone. We invited friends, neighbors, a few of his classmates. No drama, no guilt, just music, laughter, and candles that actually got blown out. And as I watched him smile, surrounded by people who truly wanted to be there, I realized something. I didn't lose my family that day. I finally found it. Thank you for watching her side of the story. If you've ever felt unheard, unseen, or uninvited to your own life, you're not alone. Your story matters. Your healing matters. Subscribe for more true stories of courage, truth, and the quiet power of walking away.